Hello everyone, hello from beautiful Guatemala. My name is Zori and I'm a purpose alignment coach, a shamanic guide, and the founder of the Connection Playground online community. My intention for this video is that I begin sharing with you a little bit more about shamanism, and today in specific, I'd like to focus on my own story with this spiritual path. For those of you who don't know much about shamanism or are not that interested in it, I hope it gives you a little bit more of a different perspective and perhaps a little bit more of a permission to explore and to speak about your own spiritual path. And I have this feeling of the way in which we relate spirituality with religion oftentimes, which makes us hold back and not really talk about it, while at the same time it is such an important part of being human, asking these big questions of who am I and what is reality and what's my place here and why did I come on this earth and all these things, And I feel it's important that we start speaking about them a little bit more. And for those of you who do have experience in shamanism and are curious about it and consciously exploring it, I hope that my journey gives you another perspective and perhaps some different tools and resources and ideas of things you might want to explore. Including, I'd like to extend to you an invitation to join me in a journey into shamanism that I will be hosting soon, where I will be sharing some of the most powerful practices and methods and perspectives that have influenced my own path. And I will tell you more about that in the end of this video, but in the meantime, I just want to start off by saying that I've been thinking about talking about this for a long time. And there's been 3 reasons why I haven't. And I really want to name them so that I can come from a really authentic space when speaking about this. The first reason is that over time, in this last 10 years since I've been interested in this, and 5 years since I've been really deeply diving into shamanism as a spiritual path, it kind of feels like I've gathered so much knowledge that I don't even know where to start and how to fit it all into a short video on Facebook. So this has been one of my big challenges and reasons why I haven't been speaking about this. Second one is, also the awareness of how much I don't know, because shamanism is a generic term. It includes within it the spiritual approaches of, hundreds of indigenous tribes and societies, and, the way that they see the world and reality, their cosmovisions, their traditions, their rituals, their approaches to things. And, and there's been just this sense of overwhelm, like there's so much out there, and where do I begin? And sort of like coming slowly to this place of actually saying, you know what, it's like I can have deep respect for all of these traditions and lineages that are out there, but at the same time I also have my own authentic experience that has shown me so much, and there is something from it that I can offer. And finally, the last resistance that I've been having around speaking to this topic is about the way it's perceived by a big part of our society, where there's this sense of, it's some kind of woo-woo, voodoo, some kind of something that, there's weird dances and weird practices and weird magic traditions that, have nothing to do with actual reality. And, just this sense of meeting that resistance and meeting the way in which actually religion has conditioned us to look at any kind of alternative approaches to spirituality as something, shady and weird and dangerous. And, just standing up here in this video and just telling you, that what religion has been teaching us about this is bullshit, as far as I'm concerned. And, and at the same time, there is some caution to be had, because there's so much different kinds of approaches to spirituality and so much trickstery and weirdness going on. So I really also understand the caution that some of you might have around this. So in this spirit, however, I feel like it's time for me to speak up. It's time for me to start telling you what I see. And you can take as much from it as you want. So my journey with shamanism, actually, I like to think it began probably around 15 years ago, when I was on my own at home and I was looking into the mirror. And I hadn't taken any substance, no alcohol, no nothing. It was a late afternoon. I was just staring at my own face in the mirror. And at some point, I just noticed there was something weird going on with my eyes. They started becoming black and very deep. And my face started changing its shape. And my hair became short and blonde. And suddenly I was staring in the face of a man that I'd never seen before. And I had absolutely no frame of reference for what the hell was going on for me in this moment. So I freaked out, I shook my head, disappeared what I was seeing, and then I focused in the same way because I was curious, and there he was again. Some kind of guy that was staring at me. I couldn't tell for the life of me whether he was an angel, a devil, something that was good for me, bad for me. What the hell is this? Who the hell is this? Because I was seeing him with my very eyes. And so ever since that moment, I've had these little moments when I would see something strange on the corner of my eye, or, you know, a strange way in which the wind was moving almost like in a whirlpool in the crowns of the trees. And there was all these things that I was seeing that I had no understanding of what the hell is that. And I remember around 10 years ago, I finally got to speak about this with a friend of mine whose boyfriend was an Egyptologist. And when he was listening to me, he was like, "Oh, you should go and read Castaneda." And I'm like, "Who the hell is Castaneda?" And he told me that Castaneda is this guy that was an anthropologist and eventually became a shaman himself. And what he did was that he went into a tribe in Mexico. It's Yaqui is the name of this culture. And he just became an apprentice to a shaman there. And during his apprenticeship, he took notes of that experience. And these notes he published as a series of books that were really explaining this alternate perspective on spirituality and reality and everything. That was really anchored in that specific tradition of the Yaqui tribe. And, you know, and he said, "You should really read this." And I was like, okay, maybe it's going to help me with understanding what the hell I had been through. And I remember reading my first book. It was called Journey to Ixtlan, or Ixtlan, I think it's pronounced. And this book, to this day, is my all-time favorite book, and it really opened up the whole field of spirituality for me. It opened up the big questions of what is reality and what isn't reality, and can we say that what we see within us is reality as well? To what extent? To what extent do we define reality by what we call shared reality, and what happens when we start exploring what's out there beyond what we, collectively agree is true? And there was a lot of wisdom and a lot of learning that I had just reading this book, a lot of experience I had just reading this book, and a lot of other books that followed afterwards. And it was about 4 or 5 years later that I made my way to another very interesting book, which was a book by Michael Harner called Cave and Cosmos. And in Cave and Cosmos, this was another anthropologist, another person who ended up becoming a shaman, who was also the founder of shamanic studies in the US, who to this day offer all kinds of trainings around shamanism and the spiritual path. And this person did something similar to Castaneda, however, he did it in a different way. He actually went around and he explored, through his own experience and through the stories of others, what are the connecting patterns between this figure of the shaman in different cultures. And, he went in Siberia, he went in Australia, he went in Africa, in Latin America, in North America where he was from, and sort of really looking into what's the common threads here. And he found some common threads. He found that the figure of the healer, the figure of the person who is in connection with nature and with the larger than human reality, and is able to communicate with it, to ask requests from it, to give offerings from humanity to it, to whoever these people might call as God or spirit. You know, this figure was present in all indigenous societies. It was oftentimes the person who people would go for healing of the physical or the psychological. It was the person who would know about herbs and different kinds of medicines that were found in nature. It was the person that would also be able to see into the future, into the past, beyond what normal people would be able to do. And it is a person that is also very much in touch with the creative, with the imaginative, with, you know, with art and culture, and holding that culture, holding the collective story and the collective cosmovision of that society. And so this figure, what Harner was saying is, yes, there have been people who have been holding all of this within one person as a sort of a profession, as we might call it today. However, he went as far as, you know, just connecting to Jungian psychology and the Jungian approach to the psyche, where we say, actually, this person that might stand as a standalone person is not just a person. He's a character that each of us carries within our own psyche. So as such, we can call this as an archetype, as a bundle of, you know, psychology, behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, you know, experiences that pertains to our inner magician, to the inner shaman, to the inner witch, to the inner one who knows things, the one who knows. This is actually even in my own native language. The word veshtica comes from the root vesht, which means knowing, someone who knows. And that is the case in many other cultures as well. And so what Harner was saying, actually, the shaman is really a part of the psyche. And it is a part of the psyche that each of us can develop and each of us can reach for healing, for vision, for imagination and artistic inspiration, for creativity, for, you know, overcoming any kind of internal hindrances and blockages and obstacles that we have on our path, of, you know, for speaking to our soul, to our very essence of, you know, this specific expression of the Great Spirit and what it has come on this earth to do. You know, so there's all these different things that the shaman archetype has as benefits. And Harner was also saying that a way in which we can work with this part of the psyche in a very practical manner is by reaching for the drum, which is also one of those characteristics he found across cultures. And the drum, at a certain frequency, has been used to induce a trance-like state, a state where we are between being awake and being asleep, also known as theta brainwave frequency. And in that brainwave frequency, we go beneath the rational mind and we go closer to that dreamlike place that we normally encounter in dreams, that is much more creative, much more imaginative, and is actually our subconscious mind. Or in shamanic terms, you could also refer to it as the world of soul, or the inner wilderness. And by working with this level of our psyche, we're able to overcome a lot of things that with our normal, everyday analytical mind we cannot, because it is the creative, the imaginative, the infiniteness of that part of the psyche that is able to move through things that the rational mind cannot see. And so reading about this, I was like, oh, that's curious. Let me go and see what that is. And I took a YouTube track, 20 minutes, and I said, let's explore this approach. And in 20 minutes, I had one of the most intense and crazy experiences of my life, without any substance, without anything, any facilitation or guidance from anyone. I went through this crazy ride in which I actually got to encounter this guy from the mirror. I had a little discussion with him that was quite freakish, in which I asked him who the hell he is. He told me it's not time for me to know. I asked him what he's doing there. He told me he's always been there. I asked him, do you love me? And he was like, yeah, I do. But I couldn't trust him because I was like, who the hell are you? And I was freaking out. But anyway, I was in a state of consciousness where I was just like, okay, I'm freaking out here. I jumped into his mouth, popped up on a daisy in the field, and had this beautiful experience there. Eventually ended up being washed up as a pink t-shirt in a washing machine and getting this feeling of being deeply cleansed from I don't know even what. And coming out of this experience, I was, as a person that thought that I wasn't visual, that I was not remembering my dreams, I was like, what the actual just happened with me. And I was scared, actually. I was scared for a few weeks to actually go back to that. And eventually I took the courage. And for the last 5 years, it's been the most consistent practice that I've been returning to over and over again, especially around full moons and new moons, which I have found are powerful times for this kind of work. Really consulting it for any kind of, challenge that I was currently faced with, and allowing first of all, my energetic body to transform within the experience, and second of all, to come into awareness of a different approach of going about things. And so it's been this really powerful tool, and I believe that I would not be where I am today. I would not have left my job in IT. I would not have went to Bali. I would not have went to Peru and to Guatemala and doing all these crazy things I'm doing and anchoring into my unique gifts and unique place in the universe. I wouldn't have done that unless it was for that practice. And so in the next few years, I just practiced like that. And I also felt, different people, as I was telling them about the crazy things I was seeing, they were like, wow, you should make a movie, you should write a book, you should tell me how the hell do you do this? How the hell do you access this? So I started, I wrote an article about it. I started holding circles where we would explore this together, just going into this state of consciousness and then sharing and helping each other learn how to work with this, because, it is very similar to dream work. It is an art in itself, and it's not about, you go in the internet and you look at what does it mean that I saw a tiger in my dream, It's you can do that, of course, but actually it's more about looking at what does a tiger mean for me, and what is, this specific qualities that come up as I encounter this image, or the way I have encountered it, and sort of really starting to anchor into your own wisdom and your own understanding of what does this mean in your own inner wilderness, in your own inner reality. And so it is an art in itself, and I've been doing this for 5 years now, just learning and learning and learning how to work with it for myself and also for others, as I'm building this map for my own psyche from within, and also looking at ways I can support others in doing that for themselves. And that has led me into becoming a shamanic guide and offering these kinds of experiences, either for groups or in one-on-one basis, supporting people to explore this part of the psyche. And more recently, about a year and a half ago, I was guided to actually go into an environment where this shamanic culture was more preserved. And that environment was Peru. It was the sacred valley of the Incan Empire that I was drawn to go to. And it was in that place that the virus came and all the madness started, and I started exploring the world of plant medicine more. And that was really a huge step for me, because up to that point, although I was interested in shamanism, I didn't feel like I was drawn or called to go beyond, just my own curiosity and exploration without any kind of psychedelic or anything like that. And I had to come to a point of, actually, this feels right, which point was around 4 years after I had started exploring with myself. And And it came actually in response to me getting curious about interbeing, about we. What does we mean? How does we work? And actually, as I started getting curious about this, I felt that my mind and my heart just opened to being shared with another being, that is, in this case, the plant medicine. And so in Peru, I worked with ayahuasca, I worked with San Pedro, I worked with mushrooms, I worked with bufo, I worked with rape. I worked with a lot of different kinds of traditional medicine. It is a very good place for doing that because most of these things are legal there. And by working with these beings, you know, what I really feel that I learned and they showed me was not only huge shifts in my perceptions of what reality is, not only big unblocking of myself and big insights into my own path and my own journey that allowed me, for example, to create the Connection Playground community, to take my business to another level and things like this. But also, you know, at the root of it, what I see it has given me is really a deeper understanding of how can I co-create with nature rather than work against her. And that comes in two very important directions. One is alignment within my own creation process, knowing how to follow the principles of nature into anything that I'm creating and work with it, have it working on my side, whether it's the nature within me or the nature around me or the nature in other human beings. How do I have that nature working with me in everything that I'm creating? And the second value it has given me is really kind of like starting to understand my place in the larger than human world and starting to understand this unique time in which we live and the importance of taking part in this thing that Joanna Macy calls as the great turning. The great turning in terms of humans realizing the importance of creating a world of harmony with all other beings that we share this beautiful planet with, and learning how to do this, how to shift our consciousness, how to shift our perspective, how to shift our business, our everyday lives, so that we actually, you know, leave a world for future generations that is, you know, just much more harmonious and much more, you know, beautiful and balanced than where we would be headed without that level of awareness. And so it's really like a way of cultivating that awareness for me. And you know, the last stage of this journey is where I am today. It's Guatemala. And what Guatemala has brought me in this is, you know, their own approach, which, you know, I am very grateful for another sacred plant, which is cacao, that has become my daily drink in the morning instead of coffee or tea. It is a beautiful, heart-opening medicine that has allowed me to create so many things in this last year. Or last actually 6 months since I've been here. And at the same time, it has also started opening up this way of the Mayan cosmovision. This is the land of the Mayans, the way that they work with nature, the way that they work with community, the way that they work with energy. They have this understanding of the Mayan calendar, which is something a little bit like you could look at it as astrology, but it's really a way of attuning more deeply to nature. And there's 20 navales, 20 different energies that they call upon, that keep on turning. Every day there's a different energy out of these 20 energies. And there's also a set of numbers. There's 13 numbers that also keep on rotating. And together they form a 260 days calendar. And you can even go and research and see, you know, what is your own Nawale and what is your own number and what does that mean for your own path. And, you know, and what I've started to really understand and get here that is that, you know, it's kind of like you could kind of twist it and sort of start putting it into, oh, this is like astrology, it's about like determining what kind of person I am and my future and things like that, but I don't think it's about that. In its essence, I think it is really about attuning to nature and attuning to certain qualities of nature and the gifts of it and learning how you can, you can offer those gifts to humanity and to the rest of our beautiful planet. And there's also a lot of working with ritual and ceremony and fire, which has been very much aligned to what has been coming through for me in this last year, which is a sense of growing beyond this initial practice of shamanic drum journeying that I had into ritual, into the significance of ritual as a way to align mind, heart, body, and spirit to come to the same page when it comes to making a big decision or a big change in our lives. You know, and we know about these traditions, it's like marriage and birth and christening and all of these things, you know, they're there in our culture, but really the power of ritual goes beyond that. It is not just the mechanical execution of this or that. It is really a way of like coming together, bringing our entire being together in order to move forward, in order to leave behind what doesn't serve and move forward into something new. And this ritual, it can be used by ourselves in our own space, in our own time, at any moment, as long as we know what are some energetic patterns in how do we create a ritual space, in how do we go about, you know, releasing things or embodying things or inviting new things in, or, you know, offering and giving gratitude. There's so many different ways in which we can use ritual. And actually this is, you know, the focus of the program that I'm creating right now. And I'm offering a couple of different small group experiences in the next few days, in the next week or so, that could allow you to explore some of those practices that I'll be sharing about, but really the whole journey into shamanism that I'll be hosting, and I'd like to invite you to join me on, is a deep dive into creating a sacred ritual space for yourself. And we're going to do this with a group, with an intimate small group of just 6 people, where we will be looking at different aspects of shamanism, different practices, different modes of consciousness, and how do we actually bring them into our bodies and into our awareness together. And through this, for those of you who are new to it, you're going to gain like a basis on which you can stand and you can explore further in your own space and time. For those of you who are more familiar with this, it's just different practices, different methods that might enrich your own tool set, and that also might give you a sense of community, a sense of growing together into this path. And there's also going to be a component where we'll actually also head out in nature and really be with nature in different ways that actually has us communicating with spirit and with the sacredness of our reality, in order to gain some wisdom, to gain some insight, to really learn how to tap into our own nature through tapping into the nature around. And I'm going to be offering these short meditations of around 20 minutes each week so that we can go out on our own in nature and explore these things. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of different interesting things there. And I'm just so excited and so excited really to create such a space for all of us to deepen into this path together. And in the next days, I'm also going to be popping in from time to time and sharing a little bit more about shamanism and what it is, and why it matters and things like that. And if you have any questions that you would like to hear from me about shamanism, I'd love to hear from you and offer back anything that is in service to your own journey with that. Thank you so much for listening. It's been half an hour, I know, and I hope this has been interesting and insightful for you and given you some new ideas. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you and seeing you again soon.